Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining me today. And I've been wanting to have a chat, a cuppa, if we put it, with this top lad. He interviewed me back in December, I think it was. He's got his podcasting mug with him. Tea drinker, steak connoisseur, football loving David Walker. Thank you so much for joining me, mate. How the devil are you?
Oh, my pleasure. Yeah, really good. It's quite interesting actually to be on the other side of the microphone for a change. It's usually me asking the question, so I'm quite looking forward to this.
It is, and the podcasting's been going really well, isn't it? And that's something we're going to touch on in a minute more when I hand you the mic over. Are you enjoying it? Do you enjoy doing that side of things?
I do, yeah. I thought it would be something that I would enjoy, but I didn't think I would perhaps enjoy it as much as I have done. So yeah, I'm really glad I got involved with that.
Okay. What I'm going to do is hand the mic over to David and say, I've got to ask David, my team's crap as well at the minute, but I felt for you last weekend when I looked at Sky Sports. My heart was with you. Yeah. Big Cardiff fan, and he lost quite heavily to his local rivals. But then again, my team lost to a lower team and got hammered on Monday. So anyway, what I'd like to do, David, because I know you've been in this quite a while in the online world, and you, from chatting you in the past, you started a few years ago, didn't you? You were quite big in the space. So if you want to start off there and just tell us a little bit about the background, how you first come to go online, the success you had from them. So all over to you, my friend. Let's
okay.
Let's hear all about it.
Well, I've been online a long time. I think I had my first internet connection back in 1997, right, when we had dial-up back in those days. I was with a company. Well, it was the very appropriately titled Virgin.net back in the late 90s. Really good, actually. I still look back on that quite fondly. I say dial-up connection. Not really many websites. I don't think anybody else in my school, or certainly in my sort of friends group, had the internet at that point. No. It wasn't really anything that was that mainstream. But I used it for, downloading updates for Championship Manager, going in the chat rooms, things like that. So just really basic stuff. But it was the following year where I first thought about the internet as a means of being able to make money. So I was on holiday with my parents, my brother and I, my parents. We were on holiday in Tenerife. I was sat on the patio of our apartment reading this this computer magazine. I'm not really that techie, so I'm not sure why exactly I had this really boring computer magazine. I must have been in the market for a new one or something.
Chair. That's where you got it from.
Yeah, and I was just flicking through it, and this full page advert jumped out at me, and it was one of these sort of very kind of well written full page adverts, and it was advertising a floppy disk. If anybody listening to this is old enough to realize what one of those is, a floppy disk that was full of these notepad text files of how-to manuals. And the selling point for this, and what jumped out at me and really made my 18-year-old brain start ticking over, was that if you bought this disc, you'd be able to sell these manuals and you'd be able to keep 100% of the profits. And that was the selling point for it. And even though it was in a computer magazine, there was no mention of selling it on the internet at this point. They were trying to sell these manuals, or to sell them to the customer as, to list them in classified ad sections of your local newspaper. Back in those days, we used to get a free paper coming through the door every week, local paper, so to advertise in there, or to advertise them in shop windows and things like that. But I read that, and I instantly discounted that anyway. That wasn't going to be what I was going to do. I had it in my mind then that I'm going to use the internet to sell these manuals. I didn't know how I was going to do that at the time. This was 1998, right? There was no social media, there was no YouTube, there was no Google. There were other search engines.
Google Ads, I think, that early, was there? It was
no.
Yahoo.
Yeah, there was
And a couple of
Yahoo, and
others. I think
there was some
I
other
remember
search
that
engines.
coming out. Yeah.
There was no eBay in the UK at that time. That didn't get launched in the UK until 1999, I think. So I didn't know how I was going to sell them, but I knew that I was going to use the internet in some way, and that I could make some money from that. But eventually, I did find there was this UK based auction website
Uh-huh.
that looked like it had been put together by somebody in their back bedroom, and it probably had been, right? It was really basic, but it must have been getting quite a lot of traffic because there was a lot of activity on the listings. It was quite a lot of listings on this site, and there was quite a lot of activity on them. So I thought, right, yeah, I'm gonna list these manuals on this auction website. And that's what I did. I just created some really basic listings, listed them up, and that's how I made my first few pounds online, was selling these manuals. Had to print them out and send them out in the mail, because at the time I don't think we had things like WinZip or anything like that to zip files up and store files anywhere. There was no payment processors. There was no PayPal at that time, so it was accepting cash in the post.
Really?
And mailing out. Yeah,
I didn't go that back.
this is another world.
Is that how you had to start?
Yeah,
No
yeah.
way.
This was the absolute dark ages of the internet. You know, everything that we've got now is really taken for granted, because there was nothing like that then. I think to process sales online back then, you probably had to have a merchant account, and then probably spend tens of thousands of pounds on getting somebody to set up a website that could process those sales for you. So yeah, that's how I did it, and that's how I made my first few sales, and that's what gave me the bug. And since then, I've been involved in some kind of online marketing ever since.
So you've literally gone back to the caveman days of the internet. I mean, I finished traveling in Australia. I was in Australia 2 years, and I remember emails were out, and they were like the biggest thing going. I've got an email address, and I've still got my original one somewhere. I don't use it now. So moving on from there, you obviously became more techie, more advanced. Then you got the likes of Google Ads, AdWords. You've got the introduction of eBay and Amazon. What year did Amazon come in? Early 2000s, wasn't it? Amazon. So where did you advance from that when the boom was starting to happen? Because have you stayed online all that from them to now, or have you had a break at all, or what took you to the next stage of your journey when the internet became more prominent with online biz?
Well, I think it was just an evolution from that first point. I think even then, when I had this idea that there was money to be made from the internet, then that's what I got into, learning how to set up websites. I think I had a knockoff copy of Dreamweaver at the time, and put together a basic HTML website, and yeah, I just got learning how to do that. I learned how to, you learn about keywords and ranking in Google, which was a lot easier back then. In those days, I was quite into like online sports betting, or just sports betting in general. The online thing didn't come until a little later.
Yeah.
But I think that back then the online gambling industry was in its sort of infancy, but they were like the pioneers, I think, of online business, certainly affiliate marketing, and all that kind of thing. So I set up, a betting tips related website, and then you have like your banners for all of these different bookmakers on there. And if anybody signs up, then you can make a commission from that as well. So that was my first foray into affiliate marketing, like back. So this would have been probably in, I can't even remember, 2000-ish.
Early 2000s. It was like back then,
so,
even though it was like cj.com, affiliate, something or other, where you literally
affiliate window. I had accounts for all of them.
Yeah. Whether they're still going, I couldn't tell you now. Then they got the introduction of ClickBank that comes shortly after. I remember back in the day, my first ever sale was an ebook I wrote about travel, and I don't even know how I took the money. And I made $12. I was buzzing. It's a bit like Russell Brunson and his spud gun. I was absolutely buzzing. And then the whole Google AdWords slap come, and you just could not. It just changed things from there. So coming into the whole affiliate marketing thing, you're not just an affiliate marketer. To me, you're an all-round online marketer. I've loved some of the stuff you've done. I've seen your success, and that's how we got talking. We was chatting about it once, wasn't we? You then coming into the last couple of years, because you said, talking about what we was talking about before, that in 2021, you sort of came back into the fold a lot more, didn't you? I imagine, I remember I started at the end of 2020, and I didn't obviously know you then. So what changed from coming into that to what you're doing now, from the start of the walk away and now it's Engage with David Walker? So what took you from 2021 and what changed?
Okay, well, I first started taking Facebook, like the whole Facebook organic thing, more seriously towards the end of 2018. And I created, the first sort of incarnation of the walk away training in early 2019, I think.
Okay, so it went back.
And it sort of evolved over the past couple of years there. But then last year, it was around March time, I think. That's when I decided that I was going to revamp part of the walk away training, and then that just evolved then, because I must have been feeling like a bit of a perfectionist or something at the time, because once I created or recreated one of the training modules, then I thought, right, I'm going to revamp more of it. So I revamped most of the modules, completely rewrote the sales page from scratch, recreated a new members area to put all of the training in. And then that's where, like, I suppose the latest incarnation of the walk away training was then launched back in May of last year. And that's, I suppose that's, that's where
that was the start of what you do, sort of growing into what you're doing now. I'm only looking at my phone, so I'm just seeing if anyone's got any questions.
Okay.
If you are watching, having a great interview, just going through with Dave here, how he started. I've seen him grow massively with what he's doing, where he wants to be, I think, which we're going to come on to more in a second. If you're watching, hit hashtag live, hashtag value if you're getting value from this, hashtag replay if you're watching on the replay. And don't forget, smash that love button. I want this to go out as many people as I can in the group. I'm just seeing who's jumped on. Mark McGarry, bless him, 2 legends. Thanks, Mark. So just moving them from the walk away, I believe, was organic marketing.
Yeah.
Showing the steps for organic marketing. I'm just trying to find the live. There we are. Find the steps for organic marketing. Hi, Wayne. Hi, Darren. Thanks for jumping on, lads. Sorry. So where you're moving towards now, which I've seen, is what's the difference between walk away and where you're moving now with the podcast? I mean, you're interviewing some big names, obviously. But
not naming any names, no. But
no.
Yeah.
But you're interviewing some big names out there in different types of marketing. So what was the change from, and what's different from walk away to Engage with David Walker and the podcasts side of things, and the blogs? Obviously, I've read your blogs yesterday, actually, pretty good.
Yeah, well, the blog that I've got set up, that's more of just an archive of all of the content that I've created, all of the stuff that I publish on Facebook, and now all the podcasts as well. So it's more just like a central hub where everything is stored on there. I'm not like actively promoting the blog as such. So I created the walk away training last year, which is still active, and it's on ClickBank, and the affiliate program and all of that is still there. But I think towards the end of last year, I just thought I want to do something different. I'd been thinking about doing a podcast probably for about 18 months prior to that, and I just felt that the time was right to try it and to see if I liked it or not. Because I'd never really, I've been online for a long time, but I've never really done that many interviews. I've never really interviewed anybody before. I've never had that many interviews myself and that kind of thing. And I just thought, yeah, I'm gonna give that a go. and I saw it as an opportunity to try and branch out from the whole Facebook or organic kind of thing.
Yeah.
And just put myself out in front of, different audiences, different people, and that, rather than just being confined to Facebook, which, all right, it does have billions of users, but you're never going to connect with billions of users, aren't you? You're only ever really going to connect with a small percentage who are interested in the things that you're interested in, and if that's online marketing. So I thought, yeah, the podcast would be a good way to branch out from that. So
Absolutely, yeah.
Initially, I was going to do it as more of an internet marketing based podcast. I called it Internet Marketing Revealed because the domain name was available, to my surprise.
Which is very, finally, you got struck lucky there.
Yeah, but I never wanted it to be just an internet marketing podcast. The idea was to have it as more of like a Saturday kitchen type of setup, right? Which is a show we have here in the UK, where you have a chef who's hosting it, but his guests aren't chefs, right? They can be actors, musicians, TV presenters, people involved in different areas, but they try and they talk to them about whatever they're doing, but they then sort of tie it back to food, right? So I had the same kind of idea with Internet Marketing Revealed, that I wouldn't necessarily talk to people who are involved in internet marketing, but then I'd perhaps try and tie it back then to how they're using the internet in some way to either market themselves or to promote whatever they're doing and that kind of thing. But after recording about 19 episodes of that, I wasn't really happy with that notion. I felt that it would be a bit too restrictive. So that's why I rebranded it as Engage with David Walker, to completely take away the online marketing aspect. And then I could just talk to whoever I wanted to about whatever I wanted to, and just have that freedom to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And that obviously is a big part of Engage with David Walker. So as opposed to where your business is going now, is this something, I've got to ask you, you say about not just Facebook. I know you're on YouTube. What multiple platforms are you on at the minute? Are you using Insta, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook? Are you across just for the podcasting? Because I'm not. I do the odd interview. I use lives for my groups, and I do find it fascinating. I know there's a lot of people probably watch this. I've thought about podcasts and how popular it is now. What advice would you give on the podcast side? But if you do want to go out doing podcasts, where would you start really as a podcaster?
Well, how I started was probably like how everybody starts when they're first getting into the whole affiliate marketing or make money online sort of thing. You just start Googling and just try to find out some information. I found a platform that I was going to use to host the podcasts, but I set it up and I didn't like it. So I then spoke to another person who's on Facebook who has a podcast as well, and asked them what they were doing. And they were using this Anchor, which is a free platform. And I thought, right, that'll do. I'll set up with them instead. So it was a combination of, in terms of getting started, of Googling and then speaking to other people who I was connected to on Facebook who were already doing the whole podcasting thing. But I think with podcasting, there's a really low barrier to entry for it, because you've got Anchor, which will host and syndicate your podcast to other places as well. Apple Podcast, Spotify, all these other ones. You don't really need much tech or anything. You just your microphone. If you want to do a video version of it, you can do that on your webcam. You can upload that to YouTube, which is free as well. All this stuff wasn't around when we first started, right? This would be completely unthinkable, So I think it's very easy to get involved with it, and just to start with it, and just to see if you like it. And you got to appreciate, I suppose, that you're going to be rubbish to begin with, like with anything else. But you have the opportunity to practice, and at absolutely no risk at all to yourself. Not even any financial outlay or anything, because you're using all free resources.
And do you think podcasting? Most people in my group are affiliate marketers, high ticket, low ticket, whatever. Do you think it ties well? Mainly, is it for the branding or in terms of high ticket affiliate marketing?
I think it can.
Forward, I think the engage with David Walker, you're still concentrating on that side, I believe, as a program.
Yeah, I think it can help overall as for positioning and branding yourself, right? Because if you're doing a podcast, you're the host, you're in that position of authority. You're having people on as guests, so that works for you, I think, for branding from a host perspective. And of course, not many people are doing it, because even though there is a low barrier to entry, there is still quite a lot of work involved. Most people who come online to do the make money online stuff don't want to do any work, and they're certainly not going to do something like podcasting, where there is quite a lot involved, and there's no real guarantee of return at the end of it. So if you do podcast, then you're going to be in the minority anyway. It also
Good
works
time to do it, basically. Why it's the newest thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it works well for guests as well, because if you're even if you're somebody who's fairly new and you don't really have a lot of experience, if you go onto somebody's podcast and they start interviewing you, then that also puts you in a position of credibility as well, right? Because you're then in the hot seat. You've got the host asking you questions. They want you to give them the answers, right? So you're able to then share your experiences, and yeah, exactly. So I think that then helps with a bit of credibility building and positioning, because again, the vast majority of people who are affiliates aren't going to be featuring on podcasts, or even not podcasts, but like interviews that like we're doing now on Zoom in a Facebook group, right? We're in the minority of that, and then I think that sort of elevates you above the majority of people who are either just apprehensive about appearing on camera, or perhaps they don't want to be interviewed because they don't want to be found out that they're not perhaps as successful as they're alluding to in their social media content.
It might get caught out. I mean, going live is a big issue, certainly for a lot of my clients at first. It's the same as anything. And I some of your lives, I think the reason me and David resonate together is we're both called David, but mainly is I love your directness. Say it as it is, and I'm very much the same. Your lives are very good on that front, and I knew that when you're moving into podcasting, this is something you were going to be good at. I was watching one of your lives the other day about the red and the blue sea and things like that. And honestly, join Dave on Facebook if you haven't, David Walker, if you haven't already. He does some really good value lives, and it is worth watching. But one thing I do in my coaching, and you can lead a horse to water, you can say to someone, get yourself out there. But the whole problem, to be a podcast, you've got to get yourself out there on that video. What advice would you give to anyone that's petrified of it? Because I've got my methods, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think with the live, I'm sure with a Facebook Live, I mean, I've never done this myself, but I think with a Facebook Live, you can set it up and you can set it to just show it to yourself. I think can you do like the only me setting or something on Facebook?
Well, you could even record it on Zoom before you do it. It's about structure, and I think that's what people get nervous of. They forget their names, which is understandable, but nobody's going to laugh at you. We're all in the same boat. But yeah, if podcasting is something you do, I suppose you haven't got to be an extrovert. By all means, I am not an extrovert by any shape or form, and I don't think you are either. No. But it's for branding, not just branding, for just getting yourself out there and the human effect. Podcasting and lives are huge to your business moving forward. Do you agree? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think. Well, certainly with lives, you've got that immediacy of it. I think with podcasting, it's a bit more of a longer term, thing, because if you go, you publish your podcast, people aren't necessarily going to find them straight away, but over time you're building up that archive of content, and so then when people do eventually find you, they're going to be like, wow, look at all look at all of these, these episodes have been recorded. Look at all these different people who've been featured, and so it's more of a long-term approach. Well, that's how I'm approaching it anyway. I'm under no illusions that the podcast is going to be a success anytime soon. I remember even something that Russell Brunson had said. I heard a quote from him recently where he's been doing his podcast now for about 10 years. And he said that for the first 5 years, nobody listened to it. Now, perhaps his version of nobody listening to his podcast and my version of nobody listening to my podcast might be very different, right? Because even 10 years ago, even 10 years ago, he was quite prominent. I mean, I went to a marketing event in Las Vegas, and he was speaking at Mike Filsame's event 10 years ago. This was before the whole ClickFunnels, so he was still quite prominent then. But I thought that was quite interesting what he said, that for the first 5 years nobody was listening to his podcast. I can't imagine there'd be many people who are involved in affiliate marketing would give something 5 years without really getting that many results, or any real notable results.
Yeah. And I think going back to what I said, if you are going to do your first live, you're probably not going to get 4.3 million jumping in that live. It will probably be just a few out your group, and that's where you want to start, and that's where you talk to your group and the people that you're marketing to. You don't have to name no names. Apart from me, obviously, who's the most interesting person you've done a podcast with? We don't have to name the name, but what was it about them that made it so interesting and was sort of catching?
Yeah, I've got no problem naming it. It's a guy who I interviewed last week. That the episode hasn't actually gone live, hasn't been published yet. It'll be published in a few weeks. Okay. It was a boxer from the US in Columbus called Brian the Bull Holstein. Now, that was an interview that just sort of fell into my lap. I'm really glad that I did it. He's like this cruiserweight boxer. He's had about 20 or so professional fights. Like a mixed bag of results overall. But his story was that last year in October, he was diagnosed with leukemia. And fortunately, whether it was caught early or whether the treatment was just really successful, because he seemed to make a fairly quick recovery, and now he's kind of trying to be on the comeback trail to start fighting again, but not just normal boxing. Now he wants to go into bare knuckle boxing, which is just insane. But I was interviewing him, and I was just grinning all the way through it, because he was just so funny. He just had so much energy. He had so many good stories about his fights. Spoke very positively overall about everything that he's been through. He, interestingly as well, he claimed that he was a nerd back in school, right? I can't imagine many nerds going to bare knuckle boxing. Pick on him now. But I think because he was a nerd, he was also quite articulate as well, and he was reeling off all of these different statistics from his fights, and absolutely fascinating. So he's probably the most interesting person.
When's that getting launched? When you launching that?
Probably in maybe 4 weeks' time, because I've got a few other episodes recorded, and I'm rolling them out once a week. But I'll advertise it on my page anyway. But he was brilliant. And
I'll share it in the group as well, David. Let me know when you do, in case I miss it. Obviously, you're a boxing fan, Calzaghe. It was a passion interview for you, and of course, mindset. Going from a nerd to a boxer with leukemia, overcome it, great story. And I bet that was, unbelievably interesting.
Yeah.
Just want to have a quick look, see who's stopping. I know Kerry's been watching. Diane, thank you so much for stopping by. If anyone's got any questions they want to ask David, please feel free to pop in. I know it's a funny one here, because most of these are in sort of East and UK.
Yeah.
Replay, hashtag replay if you're watching on the replay. Hashtag where you're watching from. I love to know where people are all around the world. Hashtag live if you are watching live. And hashtag value if you're watching value as well. I just want to move a little bit forward now as someone who's what we call a veteran, in your own words, in marketing. What advice would you give now? What we find, not just in affiliate marketing, with online businesses in general, especially small businesses, What is your opinion in the difference between the 94% of people that don't come to be successful in what they do and the 6% that do? Now, this is such an accurate figure, it's unbelievable. I've done a test the other week where I went through my last year's posts, and these were getting 50, 60 engagements. I went through 5, and the amount of people that were big names then, I'm making 10K, another kaboom, another sale gone through. Crickets 3 months later, which is so sad to see. And I added it up over them posts, who was still here now, and it worked out 94% on the nose. So what would your advice be then, as a veteran marketer who's been going since 1997, would you give to people to make sure they don't go down this line?
I think the big difference between the majority who fail and drop out and the minority who do go on to become successful, I think it's time. I think people don't give things enough time.
Yeah.
Right. Whatever you do online, whether it's organic marketing, whether it's paid marketing, whether it's, whatever other aspect you're going into, like podcasting or YouTube or whatever, everything works. Everything will work eventually if you give it the time. There's the old saying, isn't it, right? Things work 100% of the time for those who give it the time. But I think certainly just speaking about the whole organic high ticket market side of things on Facebook, there's such an expectation of immediate results that when people don't get them, then they quit too early. And I'm not just suggesting like if you haven't made a sale after a week, but if you haven't made a sale after a month, if you haven't made it after 3 months, if you haven't made it after 6 months, people are still quitting at that point rather than pushing on. So I think that's the main difference.
I think you're right there. It's patience is a lot of it. There's so many plastic promises of 0 to 10K in 6 weeks. 500K a year, and people fall through. They're great marketers, but it's not going to help you. When choosing the right program, what advice do you give? For people who are on the fence, for what are the main things you need to look out for when you're ready? You want to go into high ticket affiliate marketing, for example. What would you say are the things to look out for, and what you've got to be careful of?
I asked Blake Fontana this pretty much the same question when I interviewed him last week. So our episode was actually going to go out on this coming Monday, and I agree with what he said. I think he said something along the lines of, you have to have that belief in the product. It's finding something that really resonates with you. Whatever person is behind it, and that you do have to have that belief, because if you don't have full belief in the product, then you're not going to give it everything that you've got to be able to sell it, because you're always going to have that that sort of nagging doubt in your mind that perhaps you don't believe what promises are being made, or you don't really think that it's going to work for the people you sell it to, and that kind of thing. So I think you do need to do that research.
Yeah,
and I suppose speak to other people who are involved in it and see, if that resonates with you.
Exactly what I did when I very first started. I spoke to people around them, speak to other affiliates. Don't believe the hype. Look into it. Make sure you align with them. I totally agree with you on what Blake said, is that make sure you align. Make sure if you're getting promised one-on-one coaching, for example, make sure, I've seen a lot of people get their fingers burnt lately with certain programs. Make sure you get what you're getting and get it in writing as well, because I've seen people get their fingers burnt. But pretty much along the same lines of what I'd say. Now this is with both our upfrontness and just directness. What are your pet hates, dislikes in today's market on social media? And what do you like about today's market? Obviously, we've got Facebook and things like that, not back to 97. What pees you off about affiliate market in general today, and what, I love this now that was different 5 years ago.
I think, well, I think with like social media marketing, it is such an opportunity for people, which again, it wasn't even perhaps 10 years ago, it wasn't as prominent as now, and certainly not when I first started. But I think what's like a pet peeve, I guess, is that there's too much faking it till you make it, or faking it till you burn out because you don't make it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I think it's just the unrealistic expectations that people have. I mean, if you think about working a day job at the moment, right? So you're working 40 hours a week. You got to think about how hard you're working for those 40 hours and what you're getting at the end of it in terms of a financial reward. And then you think, well, all I need to do, I can completely replace that by, I'm going to come onto social media. I'm going to drop a month's wage on a program. And then all I need to do then is just post some sort of fake motivational nonsense on my profile, and people are going to be queuing up, waving their credit cards at me, ready to hurl thousands of pounds, thousands of dollars in my direction. And if that doesn't happen, then I'm going to get really stroppy and I'm going to quit, right? So, I think that's more of an annoyance, because that certainly was, that sort of attitude wasn't around when I first started, right? There was no expectation at all. When I first started online, creating my websites and trying to rank them in Google, it was a slog, right? I'd spend every spare hour I had doing that, and there was no expectation at the end of it. And my attitude was, well, all right, if this doesn't work, then I'll carry on doing it for a while. But if it doesn't work, then I'll just go and try something else. There's not going to be any big drama about it, and I'm not going to blame anybody else or anything, right? It was very much a just see how things go. But there's such a level of, whether it's just a sign of the times now, but it's just I sound like an old man now, right? But
no,
but whether it is just a level of entitlement and all that kind of thing that goes with, I think that goes with affiliate marketing these days.
I think there's a lot of plastic promises out there, and the marketing is clever with people getting you to believe this. And I think when people don't get them results, that's when the shiny object syndrome kicks in. Grass is always greener, but instead of improving and jumping from one to another, I'm not taking action here. So, someone else has got a program, they've got a sale, I'll not go and take action in theirs. That's what gets me. Stick with what you're doing. If it's not working for you, or you outgrow what you're doing, like what happened to me when I first went into affiliate marketing, invest again, move on, but make sure, again, it aligns with you. And what David's saying there, I think, don't fall for the hype. People will BS out there. And I'm straight, and we all think it. Just, go with your gut feeling. If you're outgrowing, if you're not getting the results after 6 to 8 months, now anything but that, it could click at any time. You see it, don't you, David? Burnout, like the 40-hour a week. You've got to give it time. It's not going to happen. There's not this magic group of people waving their credit cards, David's online, let's go and give him our money. I don't know what he's doing yet, but we'll give him our money. Doesn't happen. So I totally agree with you on that front. And what do you really like?
I think, because I've seen I suppose the evolution of everything over the past 20 years. I mean, we're able to do things now that were completely unfathomable back then. So I like that you can connect with people for free in different ways now. I like that you can do video calls like this, which would have been very expensive to do years ago, and you can create all sorts of different content. So this is the sort of thing that I like doing. I think even now, people from a podcasting perspective, people who would have been unreachable years ago, like celebrity types, right? They'd have been unreachable years ago. You'd have had to have gone through all sorts of different gatekeepers and to get to them. Whereas now you can direct message them on social media, right? So you've got a chance of being able to speak with them. And And I think now because things like podcasting and video calls and all that have grown in such popularity, there's more chance that they'll say yes to you, right? So you'd have that, be able to connect with them. Whereas again, years ago, they would have just completely dismissed you, right? Whereas now that's not the case. So I think that's what I like now, is that things have moved on in such a way that, you know, you're able to do things online that just wouldn't have been possible years ago.
It lays the world in front of you, and no one's unachievable. It's like the boxer lad you interviewed 15 years ago. You had to write him a letter, speak to his agent. Yeah. Obviously, it gives them the opportunity for spotlight as well. So I totally get what you're saying. It is an amazing world. I even to this day sit in my office and think I've got this little window and the whole world. You know, people to me in Australia were just like people who lived on a different planet years ago, you know, but now I can just talk to them like that any time of the day. I get what you're saying. That is the joy, whether it comes to, and the free entry to it all, Facebook, Insta, Twitter, podcasting, YouTube, you know, it's made YouTubers bigger stars than film stars. It's a mad world. And this is why we are so lucky today in marketing out there and using different angles to do it, like the podcasting where David's going. This is why I'm, you know, he's finding his way and it's coming in at a different angle. Putting on templated posts don't do that with green ticks and little crosses and, you know, my mentor is amazing. He's coming round to plaster me walls later and I love him. And
wish I had a mentor that could do that. I wish I had a mentor that did that. You could do some DIY around the house. It'd be amazing.
Hasn't got any sales for him, but yeah, he's brilliant apart from that. But okay, a bit sarcasm. Anyway, are you? I didn't even ask you if you're a reader, but I'm taking it you are. What book has inspired you, be it mindset or business, the most, would you say, lately and in ever?
Yeah, I think I don't read as much as I should. It's always something that I do say I'm going to go back to, and then I'll have a little spell. Well, I'll read something for a while, and then I'll probably go months without reading again. But there's a couple of things I'm reading at the moment. There's one book. It's called Talk to Me, which is by I think he's an American journalist, Dean Nelson. How to ask better questions, get better answers, an interview like a pro. So right. That's a book that I'm about halfway through at the moment, and that's more for the podcasting side of things, because I appreciate that I've still got some work to do in as far as interviewing goes, but that's been quite interesting so far. But the book that I suppose I've spoken about a few times in different videos, it's a book called The Pledge, which is Your Master Plan for an Abundant Life, which was written by Michael Masterson. Now, this book, I'm not going to say that it's changed my life or anything like that. I'm not one of those guys, but it's more of it's like a kind of like I suppose like a self-help book, where it talks about mindset, goal setting, tasks, splitting things down into tasks, rewarding yourself. It's kind of helpful, but it's also a bit fluffy with it. If you think of something like the 4-hour work week, bordering on the line of fiction, but you can still take something from it, which makes it somewhat useful. But I think why I like that book so much is that it reminds me of when my son was first born, and he was, when he was only a few months old, and I'd stay up with him through the night. I used to work what I call the night shift. So I'd be up all night, reading books or whatever, and just kind of doing his night feeds in between, and I used to read this pledge book, and I think what I enjoyed was that the author he wrote it from a writer's perspective, right, which I quite liked anyway, because I quite like doing like writing and stuff like that, and he kind of gave this like idyllic day, where you'd wake up, you do a bit of writing, and you carry on with your day and all that sort of thing. And I read that and I thought, yeah, that sounds really good. While it's 3 a.m. and I'm changing a nappy and feeding my son a bottle, So I quite, I quite like that book from that perspective. I think I've
What was
sort
it
of
called? The
taken
Pledge.
the pledge. Yeah, your master plan for an abundant
Michael
life.
Masterson. I'm sure I've read something of his.
I think he did Ready, Fire, Aim, or Ready, Aim,
Yes,
Fire,
he
or something.
did. Yes,
That's his other
I've read
book.
that. Yeah, really good book as well. I knew it rang a bell. So I'll have to, because I read 2 audio books a month when I walk my dogs and go and pick my boy up who lives an hour away. So, but yeah, I've read Michael Marston's stuff. So yeah, it's a good shout out actually, because Ready, Fire, Aim is great, certainly in this industry and for mindset as well. Obviously, Dan Kennedy's stuff is just phenomenal when it comes, if you want marketing books, peeps. The No BS series. And my favourite book, I don't know if you've read it, probably the best business book I've ever read is The $100 Million Offer.
Okay, no, I've not read that one.
Alex Hormozi. It's a game changer in your business mind. It really is. It's just phenomenal. So there's a little plug there for you, Alex Hormozi, because I know you'll be watching. I want to ask you this question now, just on the whole interview thing. Anyone in the world, famous or not even famous, might not be, who you'd love to do an hour's interview or 2 hours interview, whatever, who would it be?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this one yesterday, and it is difficult to pin it down to just one person. Now, you can't see it here, but in the corner of my office here, I've got a framed picture of, it's like my all-time favorite Cardiff City 11 of who I've who I've been watching since I've been supporting them over the past 30 years. So I thought it would be quite interesting and something of a goal if I could interview each of them, right, and do an episode for each of them. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to interview the entire team because Peter Whittingham is unfortunately no longer with us. But
that
if I could interview,
perhaps for a medium, or
but if I could interview the other 10 and Neil Warnock as the all-time favorite manager, I think that would be really quite interesting. But if I had to pin it down to just one person, then Jet from Gladiators, and I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I would be. I'd be in the crowd. I'd be watching. I totally agree. With you there. But interesting. So it's not all about business and things like that. It's about, mine would probably be Ian Wright, Dennis Bergkamp. They're footballers. It's your passion, isn't it? So great question. It's interesting to find out that Neil Warnock, do you think, is the best manager ever?
Well, the best Cardiff City manager that we've had in 30 years of supporting them.
Don't get me wrong, I think he's a good manager, but you're a Cardiff fan and it's interesting to know. What do you do to chill out from work then, Dave? You know, what do you do to get away from it? I know that you love going out for a meal and you make me hungry every time I go on Facebook about 5 o'clock. And you spend time with the family, which is so important, and you go to your football. Anything, what do you do to chill out, get away from work and forget?
That's pretty much it. I mean,
I was going to say, I think I've sussed you up there in about 2 seconds.
You never really get away from it. I work from home anyway, so and I'm at home. I'm a bit of a hermit overall, so I rarely leave the house, right? So there's no real escape. So the only things that we do is if we do go out as a family for a meal, or if we go out for a walk or something like that on the weekend, take a drive down to Porthcawl, go for a walk around by the beach and that, go to the odd football match, take my son, as we mentioned at the start, the result against
Boy likes football then.
He loves it. Yeah, you can't really get him to watch a game on the TV, but if you take him to a game, 11, but if you take him to a game, he loves it. He had a massive shock on the weekend, losing at home to Swansea. He's never seen a result like that before. But as I said to him, that's what supporting Cardiff's all about now. Now you know what it's like.
Club's all about. Yeah, you're going to get the pain, that comes with it. But I'm glad he loved my boy. I think it was up until about early teens that he started really watching it on telly.
Yeah.
But now we living up north, I miss going to the Emirates every week, but we still go away. And I've taken him since he was a baby, even though he's a Geordie. from Newcastle. I've taken him from a baby. His name's Charlie George King, so he really had to be an Arsenal fan anyway. What advice would you give? I know we touched on picking the right mentor. What advice would you give to anyone starting out in marketing and starting their own business online? What would be the things they've got to think about and the first steps?
Okay, well, I think we've touched on some of it. I think it's having the right mindset going into it. It's having realistic expectations. We're all adults going into this thing. You don't just have to believe what the man on the internet tells you. I mean, my son is in that position at the moment, and he's 11, right? He'll see something on YouTube or something, and he'll take that as gospel. It was on the internet. Of course, it must be true. Why would they lie?
Yeah. It used to be it's in some newspaper, but now it's the internet. Yeah.
But we're adults, right? We shouldn't have that naivety of an 11-year-old. So I think it's to go into whatever you're going into with realistic expectations, and to take a long-term view of it, right? That you have to go into something and not just give it a week, and then if you haven't made 10 grand in sales, that you're gonna quit and then pretend that you're an NFT expert or something like that. So it's those two things really. It's having that realistic expectation, and having the patience. Appreciate that if you have bought into an affiliate program, that doesn't automatically mean you're an expert and that you know what you're doing. Right? It is going to take time to develop your marketing skills. You do have to do all things that people say you don't have to do, right? You do have to learn copywriting if you're publishing content on social media. You do have to learn sales in the messenger or on the phone. I mean, there's a fairly prominent program at the moment now where the selling point is that you don't have to close the sales yourselves. And then, well, what's going to happen when that program eventually disappears, right? Everybody's going to be starting from zero again, right? Because they don't have the skills, because it's that side of things has been passed off onto somebody else. So it is to have that longer term approach, that you are going in with no skills at all, but you have to learn along the way, and that's not gonna happen in a few weeks, right? It could take years, right? It took me years before when I started, say in 1998, made my first sale. I didn't quit my job until 2006, right? So that's an 8-year period of me pretty much working on various online projects around my day job, spending all my hours, because I'm quite boring and a nerd, right? So I didn't really go out and do many other things. And these things take time, right? You can't expect to become successful in a matter of weeks.
And I think that's where so many go wrong. Like you say, you've got to. There's programs out there as well. Be wary of you'll be a coach. You get one sale, not even made a sale, and you're a coach. That does not happen overnight. Trust me. 26 years in sales. All right, I do coaching. Yeah, 26 years in sales. 10 of them sales coaching. Coaching at a call center, mainly women. So from a lad's point of view to women, because you've made a sale, you're not an expert. Yes, celebrate your wins. I totally agree with what David says there. Done for you. Oh, it's all done for me. Okay. What happens next then? Where do you take yourself from there? Well, perhaps you do want to go into coaching one day. Perhaps you do want to be a podcaster. Take your business that way. You're going to go with no skills. So be careful. Learn every piece of the puzzle. And when when you've gained that knowledge, yes, put it into action. But I totally agree with you there. Just, take your time, because someone has got a sale. This is what puts so many off, and I think you'll agree, is that someone will start about the same time as you. Bang, they've got a sale. Okay? Could be an element of luck, or it could be that they have got up at 4 a.m, worked till 8 o'clock, gone to work, come back and work the night shift as well, while you've just done an hour's work, and that you get deflated out of it. You've got to go out there and make it happen. There's no magic pill. And I think David agree, certainly in this day and age, you will never find the magic sauce. You will, but it comes from hard work and patience. And that is basically what I've always said. And you would have seen it over the years more than me. So good bit of advice there, David. I'd like you just now, where can people get hold of you? Where can they find out what you're doing? Where, obviously you've got your group. Plug away, David. Let people know. This lad is well worth watching. I love him for his lives, and I do watch his pods as well. And I like his directness in no beating about bullshit. So over to you, my friend.
Okay. Well, you can, of course, find me on Facebook. I'll probably be tagged in on this video anyway, so you can reach me on there. If you want to check out my blog, which is more of an archive of all of my posts, so you don't really have to go on my Facebook page and just endlessly scroll through everything, you can find me on davidwalker.net. There you can access all of the podcast episodes as well. If you wanted to just go directly to the podcast episodes, you can do that on engageshow.com. I've got a YouTube as well, which you can you can find as well. That's I haven't got a short link to that, so that's not going to be so easy to plug. Yeah, but all of the YouTube episodes are sort of embedded in my my blog anyway, on the podcast section there, so everything is accessible in that way. But yeah, I think it's mainly the Facebook page and davidwalker.net, where pretty much everything is all together anyway.
Yeah, superb. I'll put David's Facebook link in here below, peeps. I've had a few people come in and watch, stop by, obviously early in the UK. Can't thank you enough for jumping on this, all the way from, both in the UK, all the way from Wales, lovely part of the world. It is a beautiful. I've been to Cardiff with the Arsenal and on a stag weekend. If you're ever in Cardiff area, Dave said he'll put you up on the house, and he'll give you a couple of podcast tips.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, full.
Yeah, thank you.
Cook breakfast.
Yeah, cook breakfast, cup of tea.
Drinks. Yeah,
cup of tea. A bit of. I'm just trying to think of a Welsh dish. Welsh rarebit.
Rarebit, yeah.
Leeks.
Plenty of leeks, yeah. I'll even give you a bunch of daffodils to take home as well.
Yeah, there you go. And he might even take you down Cardiff City for the ride of your life.
If you're annoying me and have been really naughty, then yeah.
If you've upset him, he's going to make you sit through Cardiff City Football Club's next game. Yeah. Okay, but thank you so much, my friend. Always a pleasure to speak to you. All the best of luck with what you do. No doubt I'll speak to you over Facebook and stuff in the next few weeks. Hashtag value if you've got values from this. Hashtag live if you're still watching live. Hashtag replay if you're still on the replay. If not, have an amazing weekend. And thank you so much for watching. Thanks, David.
My pleasure. See you soon.